We are live on the Hoist the Colors Bucks on the Pond podcast. I believe we're live. Uh, I got an error message when we clicked this. So if we're not live, let us know. But we are recording either way. Plenty to talk about. I'm Stephen Igo on this Monday, March 10th edition of the show. We've got a lot to get to. ECU 2-2 week. Pirates lose a tough, hard-fought series. At least the last game could have gone either way. Pirates don't get the big swing or make the pitch when it counts. They lose the series to Coastal. 2-2 week with a win over midweek. Gardner Webb in the midweek. All right, we are live. JPN 1212 confirms. Bots, AI, Elon Musk, Doge, any other buzzwords we need to get out there, we'll go ahead and do that. We have Jonathan Wagner, Scott Lorbatcher alongside, and gosh, got to get to Wags this weekend here in a minute because we got a lot to recap there. We always go around the horn with overall takeaways. We'll start with Scott Lorbatcher on the week that was 2-2 for the now 7-8 Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what our fear was going into the week with a good Coastal team coming in, that if you don't play your best in all three games, that you could end up losing the series. And now, as far as hosting or at-large conversations, we look a lot more like it's going to be a lot tougher for us to get there. I would say right now the best I can see us doing is a 2 seed, and 3 seed or miss the tournament altogether is kind of the most likely scenario. And the reason for that is our hitting isn't good enough. And I think we saw that all weekend against Coastal. I think Coastal beat us on what we used to pride ourselves on was infield defense, and ours wasn't good enough, and theirs was in that regard too. So, kind of a disappointing weekend that started off so well. And we talked about last week how much better it felt winning those last 2 games of the series after you lost Friday. Well, we got the exact opposite this week, because Friday we were all kind of sky high on where this program was going, and it looked like maybe we had turned the corner. And then as the weekend progressed, it only got worse. So, pretty frustrating overall, especially with the way that both really Saturday and Sunday played out.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. We had Cliff Goblin on the 94.3 Hoist the Colors radio show earlier today, and how much better do we feel right now if one of those hits with runners in scoring position fall in, or if that Alex Boucher line drive falls in at the end of the game instead of going right to the right fielder. But certainly, I think ECU's got obvious flaws right now as a team, which I'm sure we'll get into with striking out the plate and walking too many guys on the mound. That we're now 15 games in, so not the biggest sample size, but it's starting to become a concern. Wags, your overall take on the 2-2 week?
Yeah, it was extremely frustrating, and I think Scott's right. I agree. I think right now, given the state of this team and what's happened so far, I think it's trending towards, you're kind of trying to sneak your way into the tournament as opposed to trying to sneak your way into hosting. And I think that it shouldn't go, unacknowledged how big of a kind of transition that is for the team, for the fan base. Just we're used to having that known team. Like, what you have every weekend. You know that you're probably going to go win. And you don't have that this year. And it's a different team. And there are, a lot of new faces. There's a lot of unproven. And we're seeing that every game right now. But even the Gardner Webb game, like, it just felt so frustrating. And we couldn't watch it, but just following on stat broadcast and listening, it was like, oh man, here we go again. And eventually he kind of broke it open and ran away with it. But yeah, just to kind of lay an egg on Saturday, coming off of the high of the season, after doing what Ethan Orby did on Friday, it was extremely frustrating. And then Sunday, it was, you were one hit away, but you didn't get the hit. And that's been a theme all season. So I'm not any more confident in this team right now than I was last week. And I think, to me, the frustration stems from the margin of error does feel more thin, because now your 2 best RBI opportunities for weekend series are now gone. And the conference does look a little better right now, but I think we've kind of seen that in the past where the conference looks like it might be better in the start of the year, and then it kind of falls off, and the teams that we think are going to be good are going to lose lose are the teams that we think are going to suck. And, it's going to turn into a crapshoot. So it's all frustrating. It's a razor thin margin of error right now. And it's just, I keep waiting for that statement week where, someone steps up and multiple people step up all at the same time.
Yeah, it was frustrating for sure. And you could just feel the angst in Clark Leclerc. We just haven't seen that big moment inside Clark Leclerc. Like, I know Boucher had a walk-off, but, it was George Mason. Like, big crowd ready to erupt, and we just haven't seen that, like, big inning or the big moment or the avalanche that we usually see where Clark Leclerc just turns into a frenzy. And I think this team is just still learning how to play in those environments and how to play with confidence. I said on my show earlier today, guys, I think I'm not going to say every player on the team is scared in the moment, but certainly at times they look timid at the plate in those big moments. And until somebody comes through or multiple guys comes through, I think that's going to continue. Somebody's got to have that moment first against a big opponent in a big game. And, when that comes, I don't know. Because like you guys said, the best opportunities, and we'll get into the conference, it is looking better, seem to be in the rearview mirror now for better or worse. All right, let's get this out of the way too. Ethan Norby, and we'll touch more on him, threw an absolute gem, quite possibly the best pitching performance in ECU history, 19 strikeouts against Coastal Carolina. Somebody was not watching that game. His name was Jonathan Wagner. He was invited to a Stanford game, and he chose to go to the Stanford Cardinal baseball game. Which, look, you want to see what's the guy's name? What's his name?
Rintaro Sasaki. Japanese phenom.
Japanese phenom. So Stanford was the play here. And so, look, I'm not going to blame Wags for going to a highly touted baseball game with a phenom. But he did miss the 19 strikeout performance. The next day, he showed up at Clark Leclerc Stadium, and the Pirates played one of the worst games of the season. And you called this, Wags. You 100% called it. So I would like you to apologize.
Yeah, so first I'm going to just address it. And I was invited by my friend who is a Carolina fan, who lives out of state now. He was back in town this weekend, and I'm obsessed with Rintaro Sasaki because I think he's so cool, but my friend is obsessed with Rintaro Sasaki. And we've been talking about it since the schedule came out last year. And it's like, so you want to go watch Rintaro Sasaki and the one chance we're probably going to get in his college career? And I said, yeah, let's do it. Just to clarify, if I didn't get that invitation, I would have been in Greenville on that Friday. And I did take off Saturday to get to Greenville, but I'm going to make it worse for me right here, but I did pull up my phone, ESPN Plus, from Chapel Hill for the start in the bottom of the sixth inning, actually. So then the first thing that happened when we got to the top of the seventh is, that Dixon Williams play, and then everything kind of went downhill from there that inning for me. So I'm disappointed. I'm embarrassed. I apologize. And I'm not surprised at all at what happened on Saturday. I said it the whole drive there. I said, they're going to lay an egg, and it's going to be my fault. And it was.
Yeah, you picked a terrible game, which I did. I did talk to you and your friend who was at the game Saturday, who confirmed that he did invite you and is, the UNC fan who invited you. So I can't confirm all that. And Wags may or may not have had a Carolina blue shirt under his ECU
shirt. Let's not start spreading lies.
I'm just kidding. Wags is a Pirate through and through. It's just an inside joke, but I did think it was funny. Let's expand on the Norby performance, Scott. I mean, what an outing, man! 19 strikeouts. I don't even know how to. I was telling Patrick Mason, like, writing about this game, there are no words that do it justice to explain how dominant he was. So we can try, but man, that was special Friday night.
It definitely was. And one point of contention for Wags is he's pretending like Stanford isn't going to come play at Duke or at NC State or at Wake Forest in the next 3 years. So, I believe
can't defend that.
May make a return trip to the Triangle at some point. But
you got me there. I can't rebuttal that.
But yeah, I mean, I texted one of my buddies who plays professionally about Norby's performance and sent him the video of all 19 strikeouts. It's not often an East Carolina pitcher ends up on Pitching Ninja. It's not often that anybody ends up on Pitching Ninja, and that's how impressive this performance was. It's just dominance. Everything worked. You saw, the behind the catcher angle of his two-seamer breaking away from the plate and how much movement he's getting on that is just incredible. It's just hard to put into words of how good of a performance that is. And, I kind of got into this debate a little bit on Twitter and other places, but striking out 19 batters is unequivocally more impressive than a no-hitter. I know the whole AAC pitchers of the week, I think it's fine. Both of those pitchers deserve it. But if you look at the numbers in Major League Baseball, no-hitters, there's been over 300 no-hitters in Major League Baseball. There's been a dozen guys strike out 19 or more. It doesn't happen. And it was an incredible performance. We probably won't see anything close to that again. The only thing that I think may be comparable, which we didn't get to see either, was Cooch Maynard's perfect game at Maryland because there was no television for that. Because why would a Big Ten team provide any sort of video feed to their games? But just an incredible performance. And definitely the best one that I've actually gotten to watch in East Carolina baseball history.
Yeah, just how do you strike out all 9 guys the first time through the order? Like at some point, like the number 8 or 9 guy has to go up to the box and is like, all right, I'm not striking out here. I'm going to bunt or just swing at the first pitch and put it in play. And they just couldn't do it. And 18 of the first batters, Wags, 16 strikeouts. Like what the hell? It was just, I'm still just, it just still boggles my mind, to be quite honest.
It's crazy. And, as I was following through stat broadcast at the start, and I was getting texts, every 5 minutes it felt like, and I'm like, Norby struck out the side, Norby struck out the side, Norby struck out the side. And I'm like, he just went a whole time through when he struck out everybody. And it didn't stop. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And, I think it's a good kind of segue into the Norby conversation because, Steven, I think me and you have been kind of aligned here where I still believe, like I said last week, very adamant that I still feel like the best configuration of this pitching staff is with Ethan Norby in the bullpen. And while maybe I might still believe that right now, I think after seeing how this weekend played out with, Sean Jenkins not looking his best, and you look good on Sunday with Lance Williams, but it was 4 innings. It wasn't a true lengthy start. And looking at what Norby did, and not only what he did, but what he did against a really, really good team and a team that's going to be in the hosting conversation at the end of the year, I believe, it's crazy. And we saw on Saturday that this Coastal team can hit, and when they hit, they can hit it far. So it's no easy – you're no pushover, playing George Mason, going out and doing this. And he did it against a good team. And it's crazy. And to me, again, I think he has to stay in the rotation. He deserves to stay in the rotation. But I think this weekend officially has changed my mindset towards the whole rotation thing. And I think Norby's your Friday night guy for the rest of the year. And unless you get in a situation where his performance just falls off, which I don't really think it's going to, I think he's your guy because he's the guy you trust the most right now on the pitching staff.
Yeah, look, I'll be the first to admit, I was with you, Wags. I fully thought ECU was better off with him in the bullpen. And right now, he was trending towards, I think we all said last week, like, you can't take him out now. Well, hell, you certainly can't take him out now. And honestly, look, he's not going to go. He may go against William Mary, go 5 innings and give up 3 runs. He's not going to go out there and obviously dominate every week. But, you're going to get a solid performance more than likely. I'm sure there'll be an outing or two this year if he stays in the Friday night role. Like every starter just doesn't have it. But, his stuff has ticked up. The adjustments him and Austin Knight have made have led to this just obviously the movement, his arm angle, but I think changing sides of the rubber and just making some mechanical adjustments has led to, the ball even jumping on hitters more. And I don't think you can take him out. I mean, I just don't think you can, because even Lance Williams, similar type of deal. He profiles more as a reliever, but we'll see where he goes going forward. But Sean Jenkins struggling. Like, you don't really have a established number 2 guy, let alone a number 3. So you kind of roll with this. I almost wonder, guys, maybe they continue to ride Jenkins just because he was so good in the preseason and we've seen it. And I know it hasn't played out in games yet, but eventually you try to take some pressure off him and move him to the bullpen. And do you just go Norby, TBA, and we just go 2022 again, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thought on Norby is when we talked about it last week, I said what I liked about him was he could eat innings on Friday night so you could save your bullpen guys. Well, that doesn't happen if you bring in your best bullpen guy in a 6-run game in the 8th inning, which I thought was a mistake. And, we can maybe get into that later, but that I think that really played a role this weekend, because when Ethan Young came in later, he wasn't as crisp. And so I think that I love having Ethan Norby in that Friday night role because he can go so deep into games, but we also have to take advantage of that. And we didn't do that this weekend. And I think that was an issue. It was an issue last year. And so when we're talking about our pitching rotation, we got to set ourselves up for success on Friday by having a guy like Ethan Norby. And then on Saturday, somebody's got to step into that role. And right now, Jenkins isn't doing it. So I do think it's time for him to maybe move to the bullpen. And we don't know how far along Towers is and Antelik. Those are guys that could potentially take that role. But right now, if I had to say what I hope to see by the middle of conference play, would be Norby, Antelik, Towers, because those are 3 guys that I think are going to be the best to go deep into games. But Lance Williams has also been a bright spot. And I don't want him to get overlooked because he pitched well last week, and he definitely pitched well on Sunday, pitched well enough to give us an opportunity to win, and should have had more help behind him had we not wasted guys on Friday with a 6-run lead and on Saturday down 7.
And so Young didn't pitch in Saturday's game, but he was up throwing at one point, right? I couldn't see it from the press box because he was on the left side, but that's what somebody told me.
I'm pretty sure it was me who told you. I'm pretty sure it was him.
Okay, and I think Chip in the press box said, that's 33. So, yeah, just I don't know. I mean, I was a little I'm fine. I think they were getting him hot when it was a little closer on Friday, and that's fine if he comes in to clean up whatever, like the initial inning when Norby was done. But I wouldn't run him back out there in the 9th when, at that point, what was it, 7-0? But that's the deal. I definitely think it affected him Sunday. He did not look as sharp. Now maybe he has the flu like half the team does, but he did not look as energized Sunday for sure. So, I mean, all that plays a role. All right, Chuck says my starting rotation would be Norby on Friday, Jake Hunter on Saturday, Lance Williams on Sunday, bullpen by committee on the midweek games. What do y'all think about Jake Hunter? I mean, I think obviously he gave up the home run, but I thought he has trended up the last few outings. Do you look at maybe starting him on the weekend at some point here soon, Wax?
Yeah, I think we didn't really do what did we learn yet on the show, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to say that this week I learned that Jake Hunter is back, and he's one of your go-to options on this pitching staff in whatever role he's in. And Tuesday he threw, and I'll say this too, I didn't love that he had to throw so many pitches this week, but he threw, I think, 77 pitches on Tuesday, and he won you the game against Gardner-Webb. If he didn't come in and settle that thing down, you lose that game. And so credit to him for coming in and just going and going and going. He never came out of the game. He never stopped pitching well. And then I was hoping, we would get through the weekend without him, but we lost Scott.
Scott has died. But he had a Wags issue. But, anyways, continue on with Jake Hunter. We'll try to get Scott back.
But yeah, and then when Hunter came back over the weekend, and I know he's going to get a tough luck loss on on Sunday, and he's the guy who came in at the end of a weekend when the rest of your staff was kind of gassed because Saturday you were forced to go to so many guys. Sunday you had to go to a few guys, and it was again Jake Hunter coming through clutch late in the game when you needed him most. He came in, he settled things down, and he held the game where it was. Your offense came back, and I know you lost the game, but to me it shows that Jake Hunter is a piece, and I have reservations about starting him right now. I really worry about long-term health for him if we just throw him back into the fire. Ideally, and I know it's a 5-game week, which kind of sucks for what I'm about to say, but ideally this week you can lower that pitch count by a lot and limit him to about 50 pitches this week. And I'm being overly cautious with him because we can't afford another injury on this staff right now, I don't think. But I probably wouldn't start him personally. I think you do have other options, especially once you get healthy. But worst case, he's that guy who comes out of the bullpen, and if he comes in the fifth, he can take you the rest of the way. But I think that's the role best suited for him. But then again, I've been talking about Norby's best roles in the bullpen, so what do I know?
Yeah, in reality, we don't know anything, but we're here talking, and you guys are listening, so we're going to continue on. Seriously, though, good call talking about what we learned. So let's do that. What we learned. And by the way, if you are tuned in, drop a comment. We got several I need to get to, but we'll get to those after this part. Skull Pirate says we are not coaches, but we are entertaining. So that's what we try to do. So if you got a question, drop that. We'll get to it here kind of as we move along to our next segment. But what did we learn from the Coastal Carolina series? That is the title of the podcast. I should probably ask that at some point. Wags took it upon himself because he's a better host than I am. What did you learn, Scott?
I learned that we have not learned our lesson from how we managed our pitching staff last year. And I kind of just talked about this a little bit ago, but we had an over-reliance on 2 or 3 guys last year. And it's setting up like we're doing that again with Pruitt and Young and Hunter, where we go to them in every situation, not necessarily situations where it's high leverage. And I think, bringing in Ethan Young in the 8th inning on Friday with a sizable lead, I get it. You want to win the game. You want to get out of that inning. You don't want to give Coastal momentum. But once you get out of that inning and you have a larger than grand slam lead in the 9th, don't bring him out for 16 more pitches. 1, because you don't want those guys on Coastal to see them more, guys like Ethan Young. And then 2, because you're going to need him on Sunday. And that's been proven and proven again. And until we can find 3 starters that can go deep into games like Coastal had, that proves to me that it's possible for a team like East Carolina or Coastal Carolina to have 3 guys that can go 80, 90 pitches on the weekend. There's been talks that it's not possible, but it certainly is. And until we can have that, then you got to stop using our best guys in middle to low leverage situations every single time they come up, especially early in the year, because you're going to need other guys like DiLorenzo, like Nick Moran in those situations late in the year. I thought Nick Moran pitched really well on Saturday in a game where it really didn't matter that he pitched well. I think that's unfortunate because we could have probably used him on Sunday in a much tighter ball game. I want to see us go to guys that are our next step down behind Pruitt and Young more often in situations where the game is not on the line, because I don't want a repeat of 2024 when you lose a Wyatt Lunsford Shinkman and you overuse Danny Bill every single game. And it just, by the time you get to the postseason, those guys are just worn out and done. And I think we haven't learned that lesson, at least from what I've seen so far this year.
15 games in, Ethan Young has appeared in 7. Brad Pruitt has appeared in 7. That is what? Almost 50%. Ian White has appeared in 8, though he's more of a 1-2 batter at a time guy. So yeah, Jackson DiLorenzo 7 as well, and Jake Hunter in 6. So those are kind of like you said, your main 2-3 guys, which we talked about in the past. In 5-game week, look, you're going to have to trust somebody else. And sometimes you got to get some growing pains. Look, ECU's losing games anyways. Why not lose them while getting somebody else experience so you're better down the road for sure. But I can kind of get Sunday because you need the series, but I agree. The Friday game, like, no need to burn young there in our estimation. All right. What did I learn? I learned ECU still has a strikeout problem. I think this was like our initial takeaway, what we learned after the North Carolina series. And it had gotten better, and it has gotten better if you look at the overall numbers, but they are still striking out. Look, and Coastal's good on the mound. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. It's not like ECU hitters are trying to go up there and not make contact. It's not like they're trying to hit the ball or trying to swing at pitches in the dirt that aren't strikes. But, at some point you do have to make an adjustment too. And, you got a lot of inexperienced hitters right now. And you got some older guys who are having trouble making adjustments too. If you are in a second and third, nobody out, 1-out situation, you got to realize, I understand selling out for the fastball at certain times in the game. If you've looked silly on a breaking ball for the majority of the early part of the season, you're not going to get a fastball in that situation. Teams are going to pitch you differently to begin with, certainly in a situation where runners are in scoring position. You have to be able to adjust. So if you have to sit breaking ball early in the count, do that. I feel like at times ECU has not adjusted well in those situations. You're going to get pitched differently in a stressful situation because the team is pitching for the strikeout, pitching for run prevention. And I feel like ECU has struggled to make that adjustment at the plate right now. So that has led to some key strikeouts. ECU goes 1 for 16 on Sunday. Obviously, that was the story because ECU lost by a run. 9 strikeouts in those 16 at-bats. That can't happen. Right now, ECU is striking out towards a high percentage. I want to say in the mid-20s. I have not checked this since the start of the weekend, but towards the top of the American going into the weekend. And you've got several hitters in the lineup that are striking out, near 30%. Alex Boucher, we know he's got power. He's striking out 38% of the time right now in his plate appearance. That is a extremely high number. So the one thing I do like about Boucher is he's one of the few guys in the lineup. If he barrels it, it's going a long way. But you got guys that aren't hitting for power that are striking out. So that's a concern for me at this point, 15 games in. I'm still willing to see how do they keep progressing because they have gotten better. But it's cost you multiple big games now. So that is what I learned. ECU still has a strikeout problem. All right, let's go what we learned. I guess positive, although Wags, you kind of had a positive one, so I'll give you another chance. Did you learn anything else that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think saying what you learned about this team is week to week. Because I think for me, I think 2 weeks ago, coming out of the Carolina series, I think what I said from what I learned was that ECU is in a really good spot in the outfield without Riley Johnson, led by Alex Peltier and Keenan Bowman. And ever since then, Bowman's kind of fallen off, hasn't been in the lineup, and hasn't had great at-bats. And Peltier, he's been in the leadoff spot for a while. I think he's had some better at-bats than you would think by looking at his numbers, but in the end, he hasn't been producing. He hasn't been getting on base, and he dropped down to 9 in the lineup by the end of the weekend. So to me, I just think that shows kind of where this team is. I said because Braden Burris came in and had a heck of a weekend this week, and he might go on a heater for a week. And this isn't specific to Burris; this is just in general too. I think it's week to week. Something good might happen this weekend, something bad might happen this weekend, and then it might be the complete opposite next week. And it's something I've talked about in the past, but I don't think that's going away this season. And you have guys like Drew Downs, who I think has played better and better the more that he's been in the lineup. And you have options, but in the end, I think it just speaks to the state of this team. And it's game to game too. It's in the game. You can have 2 good at bats back to back, and your best hitter's coming up to the plate, whoever's your hottest hitter at the time, and you go down on 3 pitches swinging. And I just think inning to inning, pitch to pitch, batter to batter, week to week, I think there isn't going to be a lot of consistency in terms of what we think we know. And I think it's going to continue kind of fluctuating in a bit of a roller coaster for the rest of the year.
Positive did you learn, Scott, if you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think Braden Burris has solidified himself as a top of the lineup guy, and it's. I think we have learned that he is that guy. So I want to see that more often. See him continue to hold down that spot. It'll be interesting if and when Riley Johnson comes back, how the top of the lineup is affected by that. If guys are kind of comfortable in that role. Dixon Williams in the 2-hole, Colby Wallace kind of coming around this weekend. I think you can add him to another thing to what we learned positively is that Colby Wallace is still the hitter that we thought he was going into the year. I know he got off to a slow start, but really came around this week. And that top 3 in the lineup looks really good right now. And I really like the way that it sets up. When Riley Johnson comes back, I don't know if there's one that I would currently want to move out of the role that they're currently in. So we'll see how that happens. And who knows how long it'll be before Riley Johnson's here. But Braden Burris and Colby Wallace were really bright spots for our offense this weekend.
All right. There is your what we learned. I also learned that Coastal Carolina's defense is elite.
Man.
Their shortstop was a beast.
And they're willing to take photos.
Yeah, let's talk about that. By the way, I did run the numbers. ECU is running a 22.8% strikeout rate as a team right now, which, isn't terrible, but it's not good either. It's kind of mid-pack and certainly not what we've seen from ECU in the past. I'll try and run the numbers later what they were last year. All right, so yeah, I am going to have Mike Mullis on the radio show tomorrow, and he went viral on Patrick Johnson with the Coastal Carolina girl. I had the feed up in the booth as I was watching the game because you can see the balls and strikes much easier that way, and I noticed homegirl took the old what are we going to call it, the butt selfie. And I was like, this is not. Did I send y'all a picture of it? I was like, this is going to blow up in a minute. And certainly it did.
Yeah.
So any thoughts? Is this just like peak ECU Coastal? Like we knew we were going to get something like this?
Of course.
100%. The best part was the girl was ambiguously dressed, so she could have been from either school. And then you also had Patrick on the call with those aren't reading glasses.
That was pretty good.
As many times as I've had my friends from, outside of the East Carolina baseball world send that to me, and I always click on the video and hear, well, those aren't reading glasses. It just makes me laugh every time.
Apparently, Coastal, the play-by-play announcer, got them in the radio booth. I have not heard the conversation, but I can't imagine what they talked about.
Best angles.
I saw the he posted a selfie on Twitter the next day, and I thought that was funny. But my favorite part about it, I think it was Patrick, and you just heard him, okay, with the camera stood on it. So that was hilarious.
I really want Igo to ask Mullis if he's ever taken a butt selfie before on the radio show tomorrow.
I might open with just that. Or
when the last time was.
Right. How many years has it been, Molly? Or the last time you got a butt selfie? All right. No. All right, back to baseball. We just had to address it. Look, we can't not address that. JPN 1212, going back to the beginning, this was pre-show. Can't believe Cliff Godwin did not get ejected this weekend. Yeah, we all, at least I know Wags had this as this is the Cliff Godwin ejection bowl prediction. I think we all kind of thought this was going to be the week, but surprisingly, fellas, not yet. Are you surprised at this, Wags?
Yeah, very. And obviously we couldn't watch the Gardner-Webb game, but I did see a video posted from, I can't remember who it was, but someone posted a video of Cliff with the umpires against Gardner-Webb. And I'm like, oh, we're setting up nicely for this weekend. He's a little on edge already. And then we get into Saturday, and it was just, again, they showed up flat on Saturday, the team did, and it kind of felt like one of those traditional, I'm going to go ask to be ejected pretty much and kind of give him a spark. But I don't know, maybe he just doesn't feel like he can do that with this team because he feels like he needs to be in there. And I think that's why. But there was also some times where he was going at it with the home plate umpire on Saturday, especially. And I thought we might have a chance. And then Sunday, too, just watching on TV, I kept thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe this is going to be the time. But it never happened. So, Cliff, I'm disappointed in you.
Do you think it's coming soon, Scott?
No, I think Wags hit the nail on the head with, I don't think Cliff feels comfortable leaving this team alone in order to get ejected. And, I did hear him talk about how the TrackMan data has shrunk the strike zone, that along with the pitch clock, which affects both hitters and pitchers. He's not at third, but last year, it was an adjustment to not be able to, do as many signals into the hitters. I am wondering if we as a coaching staff are having some issues adjusting to the modernization of baseball umpiring, some of these new rules with the pitch clock, with not being able to, having your hitters have to look the pitcher in the eye, the TrackMan data for strike zones, shrinking the zone. You're not going to steal strikes anymore. Even though I do think that, the two good series that we played this year, the catchers for UNC and Coastal have done a good job at framing pitches, and we have not. So I do wonder how much of that is the strike zone shrunk, so just focus on catching the ball where it is. So I'm a little, I guess, worried about that aspect of the game going forward. But yeah, I think he just hasn't gotten ejected because he doesn't trust the team right now to be left alone with their own thoughts.
Zach adds, Cliff was very close at Gardner-Webb, or excuse me, in Fayetteville against Gardner-Webb. I was there. He definitely had some choice words with the ump. Zach, what were you, one of 30 people there? I know Kason Ramaley was there as well. You, Kason, and the Woodpecker comprised about 13% of the live audience. By the way, I ran the numbers, guys. Last year, East Carolina struck out in 13.8% of their at-bats, which is an incredible number. Last year in the majors, the league-leading team in strikeout rate was 17.6%. San Diego Padres, and that's Major League Baseball, obviously much tougher pitching, but also much better hitters. Colorado and Seattle were tied for the most strikeouts at 27%. So this year, ECU at 22.8%. That is a 9% increase from last year where they were 13.8%. So that's just, that's a pretty startling increase, but that's a veteran lineup versus an inexperienced one, in my opinion, and hopefully that is a number that gets better throughout the year because, guys, that too, not to keep going back to this, but that's like so much of ECU's game is putting the ball in play. Have we seen a successful hit and run this year? Have we seen a successful, maybe one squeeze?
Maybe one of each, but I'd have to go back and look. But I'm glad that we talked about this, and Scott mentioned that we faced another really good defensive catcher in terms of framing this weekend, in Caden Bodine, and to me it goes back to the whole conversation we've been having all night, where this team does struggle offensively, and I think and part of this team too, and I noticed it. We talked last week about Kalinic and how, kind of aggressive he is with himself at the plate. He's shaking his head on pitches he thinks it's balls. And I noticed this with Dixon as well. But, a pitch comes in, you think it's a ball, you're shaking your head no, it gets called a strike, and you kind of get frustrated. And I think that throws our hitters off right now. And maybe that's just me, but, just my perception of what's happening, I think a little bit of that, once they do get a little bit of that adversity, it's hard to respond within the same at bat. So I think that's something they've struggled with. And yeah, Scott said it perfectly. The Caden Bodine and Luke Stevenson are both very good defensive catchers. They steal strikes. And when you have a team that struggles so much offensively, going against that sucks, especially with college umpires. But to me, it just shows that something's missing. These guys aren't adjusting how they need to in at-bat or at-bat to at-bat.
It is interesting that ECU has faced the number 1 and 2 college prospect catchers, through 4 weekend series in Bodine and Stevenson. So, these are good pitching staffs with talented catchers. That usually is a very dangerous combination, a bad combination for the opponent. So, we'll talk about how this week could serve as a get-right week, and the schedule softens, at least in the initial games ahead, which we'll talk about in a minute. But certainly disappointing for the time being. All right. Some more questions / comments here. JPN says, better Norby, Ethan, or Connor? Look, I mean, Ethan had a phenomenal game. I'll say this. I think Ethan just had the best Norby game. Connor had some incredible games, some multi-home run games, but when we reference the Norby game going forward, that's going to be the Ethan Norby game. So, but better Norby right now, look, one is a Major League Baseball player. I mean, no offense to Ethan. He could get there one day. But, Connor Norby's pretty damn good, guys. I don't know. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, if you're giving me one to put on the team right now, I'm probably still taking Connor. But both of them are obviously phenomenal baseball players.
True Pirates, man. I mean, look, Agnoses and the Norbys, I mean, can you get any better? It's pretty incredible, the story that both those families have had. Skull Pirate says Wags lost weight. Have you been running, Wags?
Definitely have not been running.
Are you still sticking to your same routine with your food? Same diet?
Pretty much, but I am in the gym regularly now, so
okay.
I shouldn't be losing weight.
Wags in the gym, putting on some muscle for the Coastal Carolina Chicks. Maybe he was on the receiving end of that picture. You never know.
Can confirm I was not.
She probably said, yeah, it's too bad you're not here, Wags. Check this out. All right.
Does this look like Rentaro's?
Hey, let's be clear. I was at that game on Saturday where that went down.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that was Saturday. Yeah, because, yep, that's right. That reminds me of another message you sent me. All right. Skull Pirate in Serious Matters says, what's the path for this team to make a regional as an at-large? Is there a logical path without winning 20 straight? There is a logical path, Skull. And I had the numbers. Let's see if they're still the same. Not that this is the end-all, be-all, but the Warren Nolan predicted results. All right, it has changed since this morning. So this morning it had ECU at 38-18 with a 38 RPI. And I think quad 2 was 13-7. I mean, that would get you in at that point. Had ECU as regular season conference champions. So at that time, it had ECU at 22-5. Since then, the resume has changed as this. And this would be a very bubble resume. 36-20, 43 RPI, 2-6 quad 1, 11-9 quad 2, 19-8 conference, strength of schedule 54, non-conference strength of schedule 25. That would maybe not get you in. Probably not. I mean, 36-20. I think 38 wins, guys, 37, 38, and a regular season conference championship. To me, you got to win the regular season and have a top 40 RPI. I think in that case, you're probably getting in, but it's not a slam dunk at this point, obviously. I don't know. Any thoughts here? There is a path, but certainly the path to hosting is probably out the window.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a path to host. Again, I think you've lost your 2 best RPI opportunities on the weekend. But, yeah, there is an at-large path for sure. And like you said, I think if you go and win the regular season, then you're probably going to be in that 38-win range right about. So that's going to be enough. But, yeah, it's going to come down this year genuinely to how the rest of the conference does and – just how other teams around you do. And it's, we talk about it every year, obviously in a different picture with, the hosting picture in previous years. Man, we need the 15th team to drop 2 this week. And now we're talking about we need the 49th team and the first team off the bubble to lose so we kind of feel safe. And that kind of feels like where we're at. But again, it's completely dependent on how the conference does. Because, if these teams that right now are sitting okay RPI wise, and I'm not looking at it, but FAU, UTSA are two teams that have increased this year, I believe. And, you have a USF that's, I don't know how they're doing exactly, but they're a team that should improve too. And if those types of teams do continue to take that step and they strengthen the conference and the conference RPI as a whole, then I think your bubble and your at-large resume is going to be a lot better. But if those teams do what we've seen them do year in after year out and just kind of beat each other up and everyone's kind of just middle of the pack in the American, hovering around 500, and they lose a lot of games that they shouldn't, then I think this team could be in trouble.
What is our path to the postseason? Statistician, good, Mr. Scott Lowerbatcher.
Well, there is a path to host. It's just we have the recipe. It's just to win 23 games in a row, which is almost impossible. And
easily done.
Just do that again, because every time we talk about this team, somebody always is like, "Well, we did it in 22."
About winning 20 in a row, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just throw that out there. But for me, it's the conference has improved. We talked about FAU. They're at 19 in RPI right now. They have a bunch of anchors this week. They play Bucknell twice, and they play Bradley 3 times. Those are 250 RPI teams. So they'll be – FAU will kind of come back to, mid-40s probably, even with a winning week as far as RPI goes. Then you have UTSA, who's 114 in RPI, but did beat Texas A&M this week in midweek and goes to Dallas Baptist this weekend. If they win that series, UTSA is 15-3. If they beat Incarnate Word and win a series at Dallas Baptist, they could be a top 25 team next week. And I think that would be really great for the conference. And then who's the other one? UAB, who beat Auburn this week, plays Alabama tomorrow, currently at 29 in RPI. They do go to Middle Tennessee State, who's 211 this weekend. So not quite as big of a RPI hit there. But for East Carolina, you have to not lose games to Memphis, to Rice, to Wichita State. I don't know how Tulane will look by the time we play them. They're kind of 150s RPI right now. You got to really sweep those teams, especially the ones you play at home. And then when you play a UAB, an FAU, teams like that, you got to take 2 out of 3. So, if we go 20-7 in conference play, win 8 out of the 9 series, and kind of win the conference convincingly, I think that looks better for an at-large play, whether our RPI is 35th or 40th. But if we win the conference by, 1.5 games or something like that, it doesn't look like we were as dominant as maybe we have been in the past. And then people will call into question if we don't win the conference tournament a lot more than they might if, we won the conference by 4 or 5 games, which we've done.
And nobody wants to go to Clearwater having to win in that screwed up tournament bracket, although I think they're supposed to push it back a day or something. I don't really know. But either way, that is a tall task because of the short amount of time and the number of games. Yeah, guys, this week we'll get into in a minute, but this should be a get right week. I think VCU is better than 4-10. They've played a tough schedule, but their RPI is 228. William and Mary has a 10.6 ERA as a staff. You play them at home, their RPI is 268. Then you have the Fayetteville game against UNCW in the following week. You open at home with Memphis, which I think is improved, but that is a good series to open with at home for conference play. So, and then you go to Rice, which is what in the hell has gotten – what the hell is going on with Rice?
Or what's the Yale? They got swept by the Bulldogs.
As we record this, guys, they are losing 9-2 to Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi.
Beautiful coastal town of Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi. They are crispy in the Owls right now, guys. The Owls have lost 1, 2. I mean, what in the hell? All right, so here's what's going on. Rice. These are the results of their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. They've lost 10 in a row. They are 2-13. They've lost 9 in a row. Excuse me. They're about to lose 10 in a row. They lost to Arizona 11-8. Respectable loss. Okay. Then they went to the Astros Foundation College Classic in Houston. Lost 14-3 to Mississippi State in 7 innings. Lost 13-3 to Tennessee. Lost 14-4 to Texas A&M in 7 innings. Lost to Lamar 11-7. Lost to Houston 18-1 in 7 innings. Lost to Yale 8-4. Lost to Yale 11-8. Lost to Yale 7-4. Wayne Graham is rolling over in his grave. I assume he's dead. If not, he needs to come back and coach right now. I mean, what in the hell is going on, Scott?
Well, you hired a former Seattle Mariner to be your head baseball coach, and
I mean, the worst Seattle Mariner of all time. Yeah.
But no, honestly, when Rice came to the American, and this is a all sports conversation, it was said that they were going to invest in their sports in a way they had not done in the past, and I haven't seen. Their football stadium is still 90% empty and decrepit. Their basketball program, I don't know how they beat us the game that they did beat us, but that's besides the point. They're not good. And then baseball, I remember when Rice won the national championship, like how cool of a moment that was in college baseball. And it was awesome for the sport. And to see them 20 years later through much older eyes, because, I was in high school when it happened, but it's so sad to watch. And like when I was in college, when Rice came to Greenville, it was like a big deal. And now it's like, this is the worst program you've ever heard of. And they're losing to Lamar. Like Lamar has a decent team this year, but what are we doing? Yale had played like 4 games, and Rice had played some of the like best competition you can play. I also don't really understand how they keep getting invited to these like Major League Baseball stadium tournaments to play like Mississippi State and Texas A&M, and then there's just a team that all the teams beat by 20. Like, who wants that? But I want Rice to be good. When I was in school from 2006 to 2010, getting over the hump against Rice was a big deal, and now playing Rice is just an anchor to everyone in this league.
I mean, it's ridiculous how bad they are. And the fact that they didn't fire Jose Cruz Jr. last year when they sucked, and they sucked the year before that, and they didn't learn their lesson. We talked about it, how they should fire Jose Cruz Jr. because that Rice team that ECU played was terrible. But whatever, man.
You talked about how little energy there was in the dugout.
Yeah, it was just terrible. Whatever. All right, done with Rice. Steamed or fried rice, Wags? You haven't had much to say on this conversation.
Crispy.
Crispy rice.
Well done.
Rice crispy.
Zach says Corpus Crispy sounds better. It does. It does. Jasmine rice is Skull's favorite. And Sharpie says, can we get Davian Hicks in midseason trade? Yeah, that's their one good pitcher. I don't know how he's pitching this year. I would assume not great. All right, we are running about out of time here. A few more things we'll get to, and then we'll get in our end of show talk. Sharpie says, looks like it could rain on Sunday in Greenville. What would a doubleheader Saturday look like for us pitching-wise? Not good. But I'll tell you what, not good for William and Mary.
Cancel the game. Not worth playing it.
Please, cancel.
The RPI anchor, you're probably going to need your RPI to be much better than it would be with a William and Mary game, win or lose on the schedule. So
rain out this week is best case scenario.
The RPI anchor known as the William and Mary Tribe. Most important question, will ECU get to wear camo hats at least 2 times this year? I say yes. You guys?
Yeah. I think they'll wear them. Will they complete the sweep? That's a different question. But will they get to wear them with the opportunity going into Sunday? Rice is in the conference. So that's one. So you're halfway there already.
They'll wear them the next 3 weekends.
There you go. Bill and Mary, Memphis, and Rice. ripe for the picking potentially. Zach says ECU could always pull a USF and suck all year, then win the conference tournament. Boom, you're in. Is that USF or is that Tulane? Or is it both? I guess it's just every American team not named ECU.
It was USF first, and then Tulane kind of stole that role the last 2 years. USF lost 2 out of 3 to Villanova this weekend.
Just when I thought they were going to be good. Lisa wants to know, can anyone there run a sub 2-hour half marathon? I cannot. I know that Scott and I have recently completed one. I think I ran mine in like 2 hours, 10 minutes. What about you, Scott?
It was like 2:20 or something like that.
What about you, Wags?
I've got asthma. I can't run that far.
Wags,
on me, Wags. You can do it. I wore a brace for 13.1 miles.
I got to make sure I have my inhaler.
Wags might die if he tries that. Brady Thomas, Voice of Colors intern, says time to watch the Nuggets. I agree. They are leading the Oklahoma City Thunder at the end of 3. I'll flip that on in a minute. JPN says, who is scheduled to start Tuesday? That wasn't in the release today, right, Wags? I know Chip sent it out, so I don't.
I read it like 4 times trying to find out where I missed it, but there was no projected pitching matchup listed.
Yeah, I mean, I do know the team left for Richmond today, at least some of the team. And are you putting on your half marathon medal?
Yeah, doing medal.
There you go. So, yeah, it may be me or Wags or Scott. We may be pitching in this midweek series.
Hope you like 55-mile-an-hour knuckleballs.
Hey, we'll just motivate the team to score some runs because VCU will be scoring plenty. All right, guys. By the way, VCU was in the regional last year with ECU, right? Because they have fallen off the face of the earth. I think they lost their coach, which is problematic. All right, we'll get into the week ahead. Bold predictions. I had Michael Klinich's first career home run. That did not happen. I don't know if he hit the ball out of the infield. At least the last few games. He may have had a fly out. Wags had
Cliff out Sunday.
Okay. Wags had Cliff Godwin getting ejected. Did not happen. What did you have, Scott?
I had 5 different players to hit a home run. I think we hit 5 home runs, but they were 2 Irby and 2 Wallace.
Okay.
And there wasn't one yesterday, right?
Barron hit one on Tuesday.
Yeah, I had Barron, Irby, Wallace. That was it, I think.
Yeah. All right, we will start with week ahead record predictions. 2 at VCU, 3 against William & Mary in Clark Leclerc. Wags.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know what I'm going to predict, so I'm just going to kind of talk through it here. But I do have a little bit of worry, and this team, it should be the get-right week. You know, you should beat VCU. You should cruise through William & Mary. But the flu situation worries me, having to, take different buses up to get there. It worries me. Obviously, we don't know the situation as far as who is available and who's not. But I don't care. I'm going 4-1. It's a get-right week. I think you split VCU. I think you win 1, you lose 1. I don't know which order. I'm not going to try to predict. But I think you come home this weekend and you sweep a team that you should sweep. You kind of remind everyone that you are capable of doing what you should do. And I think you're going to have some guys come through with some big individual performances, and ECU will go 4-1.
Scott?
I'm going to go 2-3. I think that right now, I don't know. I'm down and I'm upset, and I want them to prove me wrong. But a midweek road game at a regional opponent, we have 2 of them. I don't trust us to win both of those. I think we win Tuesday and then potentially lose on Wednesday, and then going into the weekend, especially if we do have rain and there is a Saturday doubleheader. Do we have the pitching to rely on against a team that is, going to probably score some runs? They don't pitch very well. It's going to be an offensive game. And the other factor is, will our crowd get into it? Because it felt like we didn't really have a ton of crowd involvement for this Coastal Series. And that's a huge game. And it didn't really feel like the crowd was ever really a factor for East Carolina. So I haven't seen us put together back-to-back great games outside of the Indiana State, Virginia Tech games. So right now, I just have a hard time predicting this team to live up to the expectations that I think we all have for them.
Wow, you got choked up there. Listen to
Yeah,
the
Corpus Christi.
Oh man, Lane Smith, who said, by the way, he said he's the most optimistic ECU guy out there, and he says ECU is not winning the conference, and they're not going to. He said they're not going to have a winning week early. He says 2-3. If ECU goes 2-3 this week, we're going to have big problems. I can say that. VCU, I think ECU splits on the road midweek. VCU will be fired up. Look, it all comes down to how much is the flu truly impacting the team. Cliff Godwin's not going to make excuses, but it sounds pretty dire right now. That's a concern. So I think you split the midweek, you find a way to win one, and then you sweep the weekend. I got 4-1. I just think William & Mary is way down. And ECU, the weather's going to warm up this weekend. I'm seeing, guys, the weather, Friday, high of 74. Saturday, high of 77. Sunday, high of 77. 40% chance of rain. I am also going to make a bold prediction that ECU hits 8 home runs as a team in the William & Mary series alone over the weekend. So 8 home runs in those 3 games is my bold prediction. Pirates sweep it. They wear the camo hats. Everybody's feeling good. 4-1. And Scott has to come on and eat crow. Any bold predictions, fellas, before we wrap it up? Wags, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I want to go pitching this week because I haven't gone pitching with bold predictions yet, but honestly, I have no idea. For some reason, my gut's telling me to pick something with Gabe Beschloss, and at first I thought, maybe he gets his first career save. And I'm kind of talking through this one again. Maybe he gets his first career save this week, but then I thought, in an ideal situation, you're not in situations where you need a save against William & Mary, but okay, I'm gonna stick to my gut. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm just gonna go Gabe Beschloss will get his first career save this week, and he's been getting more and more work throughout. He's a lefty in the pen, and we don't have a lefty in the pen outside of him and Nick Moran, so it could be one of those situations where he comes in the last batter against a lefty hitter and he closes out the game in a tight situation. So just give me that. Probably going to be wrong, but all my other ones, well, actually, that's not true. But yeah.
All right, Scott.
I'm going to go Kalinic home run. So I'm taking yours from last week. You're a week behind. So I think this is the week. He finally gets one.
William & Mary has given up 26 home runs in 15 games, so they are prone to the long ball, and they have also played some pretty mediocre competition. They are also the same team that allowed 36 runs in 1 game to Rhode Island. So they can score a little bit, but they have also played Rhode Island, Marist, George Mason, who they lost to 12-1. They got crushed by Boston College. Toledo and Penn State got crushed by Virginia, got crushed by Kansas State. 20-6 and 17-5 were the last 2 games of that series. So this has got to be a game or a weekend ECU wakes up offensively. If not, I don't know if it's going to happen. All right, bold prediction. JPN says someone hits for the cycle. He also says 2-3. No one will be watching the podcast next week. That is correct because we will cancel the podcast. Skull Pirate says to get a save, a close game is required. Yuck. Well, somebody's got to play a close game. It is baseball.
Well,
Skull Pirate, go ahead.
If you pitch 3 innings to end the game,
it doesn't
matter the score, right? So
that is correct. So if Rando enters in a 20-0 game in the 7th and gets the final 9 outs, that is a save.
I think I'm hoping for a Gabe Beschloss save on Tuesday or Wednesday with the shorthanded pitching staff. So I think that's my best chance. I hope it's my best chance because, if we're in a close game this weekend, please no.
Seatown Pirate 1. Let's guess how Kalinic will celebrate his home run.
I like that.
Any thoughts?
He's pimping it.
I think he will do push-ups on a home plate.
I can see it.
I think he's just going to go.
Maybe he'll nod instead of shaking his head.
Ooh, he will celebrate his home run by resulting in Cliff Godwin getting ejected because Kalinic is going to get ejected by doing something, and then Cliff is going to defend him, and then Cliff's also going to get ejected.
Sharpie says removes his shirt. I want to see. You know what? I want to see Kalinic cross home plate and take a selfie of his ass. Just to honor the Coastal Carolina chick. He would definitely get ejected for that if the umpire knew what was going on, but I think that'd be pretty hilarious.
Worth it.
All right, bowl prediction, 2-run rule games this weekend, says Zach. JPN has the same bowl prediction, so we'll see if that comes true. And Pruitt has an outing without a walk or hit by a pitch, says Jonathan. Does ECU basketball make the finals this weekend? All right, last question. Does ECU basketball make the conference finals? I'm going to say no.
Asked me this time last week, I say maybe, but I'm going no, just with how they ended.
When one door closes, another one opens. And ECU doesn't only make the conference finals, they win the whole damn thing.
We're sacrificing a baseball season to make the tournament. I'll tell you what, if ECU wins the conference tournament, Bucks on the Pond will turn into Pirates on the Hardwood next Monday night.
Okay.
We got to come up with a better name.
Yeah, we'll come up with a better name for sure. That's all I got on short notice. But yes, that is what we're doing. We'll at least have half a show dedicated to March Madness because at that point, no offense, ECU baseball, you've carried us for years, but everybody is going to be traveling to wherever the Pirates are playing, including Wags. He's not going to go to see North Carolina in the NIT. He's going to see the Pirates in the NCAA.
Hey, they're going to be playing at home in Raleigh, so I'm going to be right there.
I would love that.
I can't wait to be a 15 seed. It's going to be. We're going to be a date. We're going to be in the first.
That's fine.
Games.
Send me wherever the hell. Send me to Hawaii. Just give me some tournament. All right, we got to get out of here. It's been a fun show, despite a tough series loss. Appreciate everybody tuning in. For Wags, for Scott Lorbatcher, I am Stephen Igo. We will get. We'll see you guys Monday night. Maybe we're talking hoops. Maybe we're talking about a 5-0 week. We'll see. We will see you then. It's been fun.